Imagine a world where the very foundation of meaning and morality has crumbled. A world where the question, "Is God still relevant?" no longer stirs the soul. This isn't just a hypothetical scenario, it's the reality many believe we are living today. The phrase "God is dead" wasn't coined to celebrate atheism, but as a stark warning from philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. He observed that humanity, in its pursuit of knowledge and progress, had turned away from God, leaving a vacuum where faith once anchored civilization. The result? A deep sense of disorientation as people search for meaning in fleeting pleasures, wealth, or power. But what happens when these fail to fill the void? Are we unknowingly choosing a life of spiritual emptiness? C.S. Lewis, a man deeply acquainted with doubt before embracing faith, understood the stakes of such a choice. Through his writings, he illuminated the dangers of a culture disconnected from the divine. He argued that rejecting God wasn't merely a philosophical issue, it was a personal tragedy with eternal consequences. His insights, drawn from experience and reflection, resonate more than ever in a world where distractions replace purpose and fleeting trends overshadow timeless truths. Today, we'll explore these profound ideas through the lens of faith, philosophy, and culture. We'll unravel Nietzsche's declaration and compare it with Lewis's urgent warning. Why did Lewis believe that a world without God leads not to freedom, but to despair? And how does this tension between belief and skepticism affect us in our everyday lives? This journey isn't about providing easy answers. It's about confronting the uncomfortable truths of modern existence. Are we truly free, or are we shackled by our own rejection of divine purpose? More importantly, how can we reconnect with the transcendent in a time when everything sacred seems forgotten? Before we delve deeper, make sure to join our community by subscribing to the channel. Here we tackle the most pressing questions of faith and existence. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming discussions. Stay with us as we uncover truths that might just transform the way you see the world and your spiritual path. Before we move forward, make sure you're part of this community by subscribing to the channel. By doing so, you won't miss any of our future reflections on faith, meaning, and the challenges of modern life. If today's topic has sparked your interest, show your support by liking this video. It helps bring this discussion to others who may need it. And don't forget to activate the notification bell to stay updated on our latest content. Finally, share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about the idea that modern progress might have disconnected us from something deeper? Let's start a conversation. The phrase "God is dead" was first penned by Friedrich Nietzsche in the late 19th century, not as a celebration, but as a lament. It marked what he saw as the unraveling of a shared moral framework that had been shaped by centuries of faith. For Nietzsche, the death of God was not a literal claim, but a metaphor for the decline of belief in a transcendent moral authority. With the rise of scientific thought, industrialization, and secularism, humanity had, in his view, killed the idea of God. But this was not merely an intellectual shift. It was a profound cultural transformation with far-reaching implications. Nietzsche warned that without God, humanity would lose its compass, plunging into nihilism, where life lacks inherent meaning or value. In stark contrast to Nietzsche's existential despair, C.S. Lewis offered a response rooted in faith and reason. A devout atheist in his youth, Lewis experienced firsthand the emptiness that comes from rejecting God. His journey to faith gave him a unique perspective on the cultural consequences of a godless worldview. In The Abolition of Man, he described how modernity, in its effort to distance itself from the divine, has created what he called men without chests, people driven by intellect and appetite, but devoid of moral grounding. For Lewis, rejecting God didn't liberate humanity. It enslaved it to its basest instincts. As we look at today's world, these two voices, Nietzsche's warning and Lewis's prophetic insights, seem more relevant than ever. The pursuit of progress has led to unparalleled advancements in technology, science, and human rights. Yet the same world grapples with rising mental health crises, fractured relationships, and a pervasive sense of purposelessness. Could it be that, as Nietzsche predicted, we've lost the foundation that once gave life meaning? Or is Lewis correct in asserting that faith, rather than progress alone, is what sustains the human spirit? This backdrop sets the stage for the discussion ahead. How did we get here, and what can these two great thinkers teach us about navigating a world seemingly adrift? It's a question that challenges us not just culturally, but personally. The question at the heart of this discussion is as profound as it is unsettling. Can humanity thrive without God? For centuries, faith provided the moral framework upon which civilizations were built. Yet, as the modern world increasingly leans on science, reason, and personal autonomy, the necessity of God has come under scrutiny. Friedrich Nietzsche's declaration that God is dead captured this seismic cultural shift, framing it as an inevitable result of progress. But while some hailed this as liberation, Nietzsche himself warned that the loss of divine authority would leave humanity adrift in a sea of uncertainty. Without an ultimate source of meaning, he feared, humanity would construct hollow idols, ideologies, consumerism, or even self-worship to fill the void. C.S. Lewis viewed this same dilemma through a different lens. For him, the rejection of God wasn't simply a philosophical argument, it was a spiritual tragedy. In Mere Christianity, he wrote, God designed the human machine to run on himself. He himself is the fuel our spirits were designed to burn. To Lewis, humanity's attempts to replace God with worldly solutions were destined to fail because they ignored the soul's deepest longing. He believed that a world without God would inevitably spiral into moral chaos and existential despair. Today, we see these warnings playing out in real time. The pursuit of personal freedom, unmoored from a higher purpose, has led to paradoxical outcomes, unprecedented technological and social advancements coexisting with rising anxiety, depression, and isolation. Nietzsche's hollow idols have indeed taken many forms: social media, material success, and political ideologies, but none have provided lasting fulfillment. Similarly, Lewis's fears of a culture disconnected from the divine echo loudly in our struggles to find shared values and purpose. This debate raises pressing questions for each of us. Is faith an essential foundation for a meaningful life, or can humanity chart its course without it? Are we truly free when we reject God, or are we enslaved by the very systems we create to replace Him? These are not just academic inquiries. They touch the core of our existence and demand answers that go beyond theory, into the realm of personal belief and choice. The modern age has often been defined by its pursuit of progress and its rejection of traditional structures, including faith. In this context, materialism has emerged as a dominant force, promising happiness and fulfillment through wealth, possessions, and personal success. Yet, as C.S. Lewis argued, this reliance on the material world to satisfy our deepest desires is inherently flawed. He wrote, "If I find in myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world." This insight points to the universal longing for something transcendent, something no earthly achievement can fulfill. Materialism, while alluring, often leads to a sense of emptiness. The modern individual, surrounded by comforts and luxuries, is paradoxically plagued by feelings of dissatisfaction and purposelessness. Lewis identified this discontent as a symptom of humanity's disconnection from God, likening it to a machine trying to run without its proper fuel. Without the divine, he argued, people are left searching for meaning in substitutes, relationships, careers, entertainment, that ultimately fail to provide lasting peace. Nietzsche's critique complements this observation. While he acknowledged the void left by the death of God, he foresaw that humanity would attempt to fill it with new gods. These could be ideologies, political systems, or even the elevation of self. Yet he warned that these replacements would be fragile, unable to sustain the weight of existential questions. In many ways, this prediction has come true. Modern society often prioritizes individualism and self-expression, but this pursuit has not delivered the fulfillment it promised. Instead, it has led to fragmentation, as people struggle to anchor their identities in an ever-shifting cultural landscape. The Bible offers a striking counterpoint to these modern struggles, emphasizing that humanity's ultimate purpose is found in God. "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you, wrote St. Augustine centuries before Lewis. This timeless truth highlights the central conflict. We are spiritual beings attempting to live as though we are not. The question, then, is not whether progress and materialism can coexist with faith, but whether they can ever truly replace it. If this discussion has made you pause and think, now is the perfect time to engage further. Take a moment to like this video. It's a small action that makes a big impact in helping us reach more people with these important reflections. If you haven't subscribed yet, join our growing community where we tackle the toughest questions of faith and existence together. Hit the notification bell so you'll never miss our next deep dive into spirituality, philosophy, and the truths that define us. As humanity continues to distance itself from faith, it increasingly turns to ideologies, movements, and personal autonomy as substitutes for the divine. C.S. Lewis warned that these replacements, while often well-intentioned, fail to address the fundamental longing for purpose that resides in every human soul. In his work, The Abolition of Man, he described a world where humans, in rejecting God, attempt to create their own moral frameworks, yet without a higher standard to anchor these values, they inevitably crumble under scrutiny. Lewis argued that a culture unmoored from divine truth risks falling into chaos, with morality reduced to subjective preference or collective convenience. Nietzsche foresaw a similar trajectory, though his tone was one of warning rather than critique. He believed that the absence of God would lead humanity to construct new gods, be it ideologies, power structures, or even technology. These, however, would lack the depth and permanence of the divine. Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, or overman, represented his vision of humanity's attempt to rise above this void by creating its own meaning. Yet even he acknowledged that this path would be fraught with existential struggle, as individuals grappled with the weight of self-made morality. In today's world, we see the manifestation of both thinkers' concerns. The rise of individualism and relativism has created a society where personal truth often supersedes objective standards. Social media amplifies this phenomenon, turning individuals into brands and values into commodities. Yet, despite unprecedented levels of self-expression, rates of depression, anxiety, and loneliness continue to climb. It seems that the new gods of autonomy and self-fulfillment are failing to provide the answers they promised. The Bible offers a poignant counterpoint to this modern dilemma. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Matthew 6:21. This verse underscores the importance of anchoring one's life in something eternal, rather than the fleeting promises of the world. Both Lewis and Scripture remind us that only God can satisfy the deep hunger for meaning that defines the human experience. The challenge lies in recognizing the insufficiency of substitutes and turning back to the source of true fulfillment. At the core of this discussion lies a profound truth. The absence of God in our lives is not merely a cultural phenomenon, but a deeply personal choice. C.S. Lewis illustrated this concept powerfully in The Great Divorce, where souls in a self-imposed separation from God cling to their isolation rather than accepting grace. He described hell not as a fiery pit imposed by a vengeful deity, but as a state chosen by individuals who reject the light, preferring their own darkness. This chilling idea forces us to confront a vital question. Are we consciously choosing separation from God, or is it happening without us realizing it? In the noise of modern life, the divine voice often goes unheard. Social media, entertainment, and the relentless pace of progress drown out the still small call of God. Yet even in this chaos, there is a persistent longing within us, a hunger for something eternal. Lewis believed that this yearning is evidence of our true purpose, to seek and be united with our Creator. However, he also warned that God does not force himself upon us. His respect for our free will is absolute, allowing us to make decisions that shape not only our lives but our eternal destinies. This reality is reflected in the Bible's depiction of choice. In Deuteronomy 30:19, God says, "I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life, so that you and your children may live." The decision is ours, but it is not without consequence. Every action, every thought, and every priority in our lives reflects the path we are walking. Are we moving toward the light of God's grace, or are we drifting further into shadows of self-reliance and isolation? This reflection is not meant to condemn but to awaken. It calls us to pause and evaluate the direction of our lives. In a world that offers countless distractions, the greatest tragedy would be to lose sight of the eternal. Lewis's insights, paired with the timeless truths of Scripture, challenge us to make an intentional choice, to seek God, to listen for His voice, and to walk in His light. As we reflect on the profound questions raised, one truth stands out. Our choices are not merely decisions for the here and now, they carry eternal significance. C.S. Lewis frequently emphasized that every moment of our lives is a step toward one of two ultimate destinations. He wrote, "Every time you make a choice, you are turning the central part of you into something a little different from what it was before." This process is not sudden or dramatic, but gradual, shaped by countless small actions and thoughts. It's a sobering realization. Our daily habits and priorities reveal the trajectory of our souls. Nietzsche, though coming from a vastly different perspective, recognized the gravity of humanity's decisions in a post-God world. Without a divine standard to anchor us, he warned, we risk creating values that are as fleeting as the systems we build to sustain them. These values, disconnected from anything eternal, leave us vulnerable to cycles of disillusionment and despair. In rejecting God, Nietzsche saw humanity turning inward, attempting to create meaning, but often finding only emptiness. Scripture offers a striking counterpoint to this bleak outlook. Jesus' words in John 10:10 resonate powerfully, "I have come that they may have life, and have it to the full." The fullness of life that Christ promises is not rooted in possessions, achievements, or fleeting pleasures, but in a relationship with God. This is the life C.S. Lewis described as the weight of glory, an existence that recognizes and responds to the divine spark within each of us. So where does this leave us? It leaves us with a choice, one that we must face daily. Are we allowing the distractions and priorities of this world to pull us away from what truly matters? Or are we intentionally seeking the presence of God in our lives, knowing that His grace offers the fulfillment we long for? The decision is deeply personal, but its impact is universal. As Lewis and Scripture remind us, the path to God is always open, but it requires intentionality to walk it. As we near the conclusion of this journey, the most important takeaway is not found in abstract ideas or intellectual debates, but in the reality of our own hearts. C.S. Lewis often wrote that the human soul carries within it a longing that nothing in this world can satisfy. This longing is not a flaw or a weakness, it's a clue, a signpost pointing toward our Creator. In Mere Christianity, Lewis put it simply, creatures are not born with desires unless satisfaction for those desires exists. A baby feels hunger. Well, there is such a thing as food. A duckling wants to swim. Well, there is such a thing as water. In the same way, our desire for purpose, connection, and eternal love points to the existence of God. But recognizing this longing is only the first step. The question that remains is, what will we do with it? Will we allow the noise of modern life, our distractions, our fears, our pride, to drown out the call of God? Or will we dare to listen, to follow, and to choose the path that leads to Him? This is not a decision to be made once and forgotten. It is a daily choice, as relevant in the mundane moments of our lives as it is in times of crisis. Scripture echoes this call to intentionality. In Revelation 3:20, Jesus says, "Here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with that person, and they with me." The invitation is always open, but the act of opening the door requires courage and humility. It requires us to admit that we cannot satisfy our deepest desires on our own, that we were made for something greater. Lewis's insights, combined with the timeless truths of Scripture, leave us with a challenge and a hope. The challenge is to confront the ways in which we might be turning away from God, consciously or unconsciously. The hope is that no matter how far we've strayed, His grace is always within reach. The question now is, will we take the next step toward Him? Thank you for joining me on this exploration of faith, meaning, and the timeless wisdom of C.S. Lewis. If today's discussion resonated with you, don't let the reflection stop here. Take a moment to think about how the ideas we've explored apply to your own life. Are there areas where you feel disconnected from God? What steps can you take to align your heart with His purpose? These are questions worth asking, and this community is here to support you in that journey. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to this channel and click the notification bell. Together, we dive into the big questions of life, blending philosophy, theology, and culture to uncover truths that matter. Don't forget to like this video. It helps us reach others who might need encouragement or a new perspective. Finally, let's continue the conversation in the comments. What stood out to you the most today? Do you believe that faith is essential for a meaningful life? Your insights could spark inspiration for someone else. Remember, every step toward God is a step toward the fulfillment and purpose you were created for. Let's walk this path together.